This is a wild Heerbrugg NA2 level, what they call an engineer's level, and this was built, this particular one, in 1974. It's a 30 power level, and it's a nice level. Actually, this is a junker since it doesn't work. I'm going to show how to take the compensator out of there. If you take this back and forth, there's no jiggle in it, so I know the compensator's bad. So this is what you call an old style NA2 Engineers Level. So what you do is you go over here, you take off the back. If these don't come off right away, you can put a little bit of penetrant in there, and I had to do that. This guy's a little bit tough. In fact, there it goes. It didn't want to come, so you got to be careful you don't bust the screws out. So I'm going to take the back end off of this auto level. Need something also to catch all these parts in. I tend to use Ziploc bags. So I'm going to take this off just like this and put the lens assembly. It's got a little finger which is kind of delicate here, which bumps the compensator. I'm going to go ahead and put that in a Ziploc bag to contain all the screws. Zip it up. Okay, normally on here in the compensator, this should move back and forth. And I can tell just from the sound of this, there's no clunking back and forth. So I know this is jazzed up. So when you take one of these apart, you can leave this assembly on. I prefer sometimes to take it off. So I'm going to go in here and blast this off of here. Got to make sure you got the right screwdriver. There's the compensator again. Take this assembly. You don't have to take this off. I sometimes like to take it off just to look at. There's the compensator. Now before that comes out by going in these screws in here. These can be tough too, so you got to be careful. You got a screwdriver that'll exactly match that. The heads of these screws on the back end here are the same as the ones that are down in there. So you find if a screwdriver fits these real well, it'll also fit these. Now before you take this off, you got to go in here and take the undo some junk here, because the compensators want to slide out of there. So I go ahead and take the little washer out. It's a little brass piece on here. This is the adjustment for the level. It goes in there and biases the spring. Now, on the compensator in there, when you adjust the level, this little screw here goes through a little slinky spring that's a little bitty guy that biases the floating pendulum. That's how the compensator works. This thing sinks down due to gravity. It floats on these tapes, which are these 4 tapes. And this is the bias that tends to move it back and forth, that you adjust the level. Now I'm going to go in here and take this off, because unless you take this off, you can't slide the compensator out. Go in here and take the brass piece off. Take that out of there. And then there's a little rubber dewey. It's got to come off, a little hat. So I'm going to take all these little parts and I'll put them inside another bag. That's just so I know where they go. You can also shoot a video like this. I've got 3 bags of parts here. And I'm going to go under here. Do this. Still doesn't want to come out. Still doesn't want to come out of there. Still a little bit hung up. Now without taking this stuff out of the side, it's going to get hung up. So there's the whole compensator out. That's the focus. And that's the adjust. This is the body. So I'm going to go here and check the camera real quick. We've got the compensator there. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in some. See if I know how to zoom. Okay, there's the compensator. Now, this sticks right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this shield here, peek what's in there. There's one screw. That screwdriver really doesn't want to fit that well. Here's the heater kicking in. This will just pop off the top like that. I'll leave those over there. Take that stuff. It's real easy to lose some of this. Stick it in another bag. Okay, there's the compensator. Now that compensator right now is sticking. So I'm going to go ahead and take off this, which is a lock, back and forth on here, to reduce the range of motion. I'm going to run out of bags here. And I can look at this and I can tell over here that it's been rubbing right here on the edge of the bar. If I can hear it. It has a little bit of tilt, but it's rubbing. That's because this piece here is gone through and it's somehow, this has probably been compromised. It's been dropped, and then one of the wires is stretched and it's over rubbing on one of these crash stops. So I'm going to go in here and back this off just a little bit. And let's see if I can lock this down. Now, compensator, what you really want is you want to have it close but not touching. If it's touching, it's no good. If it's got too much clearance, then it's going to have more energy before in a crash situation, and so you end up have a propensity to have this thing not seek level. And there it is. I've gone through and backed off the stop just a little bit. And right now it's floating pretty well. So looking at this, the wires on here, the tapes, look like they're actually intact. And I'm going to hope that this actually is a crude fix. This is the compensator over here. If I zoom out, these are the tapes. It hangs on these 4 tapes, and up here is what you have, magnetic damping, and this plate moves back and forth in the gap of the magnets and generates a back EMF, which is the damping, make it not dance around. Actually, this is a shorted turn of a motor. So over here On this type of instrument, this is like a Cadillac of all instruments, made by Heerbrugg, which actually got bought by Leica, so that's not too much of an untrue statement. A new one of these, which is the new style, lists for $2,195, around 1875 euros. And let me zoom in here a little bit closer. I've got a gap in there, probably about quarter millimeter, half a millimeter eyeballing it. And I'm going to go ahead and put this back on. And after I've done all this, I'm going to put this together and see if the unit actually is alignable. If I'm lucky, it is. If not, it could be way out of balance, and then that's another story which you've got to go through and set over here. It's got a whole bunch of weights that have the offset for the balance on here. And these are split nuts, so you can go through there and back it off or tighten it. This is actually done at the factory, and I don't think this compensator is made anymore. Now if you look at this, you see if you go back through here, it has a sweet spot. Let me zoom in a little bit more. You can see this pin here actually right there is floating, and that's what it does when it's in the range of motion of in the auto level, and that seeks gravity, and then these are the crash stops to reduce the range of motion. So since I've got that on there, I'm going to go ahead and back this out. And I'm going to go put this back on again real quick. Put the cover on. Now I'm going to, later on, if all this works, I'm going to go put a little bit of Gliptol on here. You can sometimes use nail polish. If you use something like that, you got to make sure you can let it dry. If you don't, what'll happen is you'll go through and you can have the stuff outgas and get all over the darn optics and things, and then you got a real problem. If that happens, you can get cloudiness and you just got a big mess. Gliptol used to be made by GE. I'm not sure who makes it anymore. As you can see here, this is not the optimum way to do this. Got screws all over the place. Need a third hand. Most all these little screws like this are all custom, so if you screw one up, you're in deep trouble. So what you want to do is have it place that, make sure you got some place that can jump to. Do this in a big open tub like a watchmaker. You don't want to let this stuff out where a dog or a cat can get at it. And I'm going to put this back on. Didn't really have to do this. First time I did this, I wasn't sure of the balance on this, if this was going to go through and teeter over. And when I put this together, we'll see. This compensator probably cost about 500 bucks, I bet you. It's like almost like a Mercedes-Benz, very high-end. Yeah, I was worried about the CG, but it seems like it's fairly well balanced on there. But you might not, to get at this screw here is a little bit harder to get at. That's one of the reasons I took it off, because I don't have, sometimes you don't always have the best of screwdrivers. I end up getting some, and I end up breaking them and getting other ones, but I was kind of concerned this was too tight the first time I took this apart. So I took this off purposely so I could get in here and get a direct hit on here, not have this little bit better action on there. There's the two screws we've got on here. Now I'm going to take the instrument, put it up on end like this. We'll zoom back some. Let's see if we can put this sucker in there. Go in here and just snug these up a little bit. Now this is not, I'm not doing this to be a final thing. I just wanted to do this to see if I've actually resurrected this or not. The compensator is even in the right range. Okay, got this bag done. This bag's done. Now I'm going to go through and do the parts for the adjustment gizmo. That's over here. This is the adjustment, which is the bias. Again, that's the little screw here that's used. That turns a little, very, very wimpy spring. It's probably way, way wimpier than a ballpoint pen spring. And it goes through here and it biases these pendulum. Sort of like if this was a teeter-totter or this was a swing and you had a light, just a slinky hook to it where you could pull this thing back and forth to move the swing just slightly one way or another. So I'm going to go through here, put the little hat on. I think that's for water. Now what's weird is I took another one of these apart before and it didn't have all this stuff on here. So I think what happened is somebody had taken it off and I'd never seen that little hat thing. So that might be the other one I've got of these things. Somebody's gone ahead and left parts out, and that's actually fairly common. You end up doing something and then, you know, you lose it, and so in the heat of battle somebody will go through and the instrument will go back and be fixed, and then there's some parts missing on it. That happens on all sorts of stuff. Washing machine, lawnmowers, cars. So all that little brass dewey does is it holds the little hat in place, and that's a seal. And then this is how the adjustment is. When you collimating the level, you go through here and you put a little screwdriver in here and you on the collimation fixture or a peg test, and you twist this to adjust it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back on. It's a little gizmo. Switch this over. That's a little hideaway cover. Lock that in place. And I'm going to take this thing. I took this apart earlier and I said, well, I'm going to shoot a video. Might help somebody else out. And true enough, we had a screw here just go wayward. It's probably on the floor, but probably won't lose it too quick. Here's 3. Here's the 4th one. One of these was really tight. I mean, I could not get the thing off. And so what I had to do over here is that to get these off over here, these bolts, screws actually, since you tighten them by the thing, I had to put some Kroil in there, Kroil. You use that on guns and stuff. And one of them just wouldn't come off. 2 of the 4 wouldn't come off. This is pretty clean. This is a little gizmo here that goes through, and it hits the gizmo that pushes on the compensator. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back like this. Most of these is all, this is made in Switzerland, so this is all metric stuff. Very fine made thing. This is a junk level I bought. Just playing around with. Sometimes you can fix stuff like this, sometimes you can't. But these 2 of these out of the 4 were just incredibly tight. I had to go through and use a screwdriver. I'd go ahead and go through all my screwdrivers, find one that fit very well in here, and still I end up torquing the darn screwdriver, bending it. But I went through and put some Kroil on here, put the unit up on the end, and let it sit. Now what you want to do is, if in doubt on some stuff, you want to go through and let time be your frame, because if you end up screwing up one of these screws, you may not be able to find a screw. It's harder to find in the United States and of course other places. But another thing is that you're gonna have to bore it out. But if the instrument's been around for a long time, you want to probably go through and just let time be your friend, and whatever. This instrument here, you level up the screws, the bubble like this. And I can actually hear the compensator back and forth in there. So I'll have to go ahead and see if this lines up, but that's what they call a new style, old style NA2 level. There's a variant of this that has a deal over here that goes through and looks at a circle. It reads out in degrees. This particular model doesn't. This is a little mirror you look down to see what they call the bullseye bubble in there. And this also has sunshade that pops out like that. In fact, and I didn't even know that, I have another one of these. This is basically almost like corroded on there. These are very well made out of brass and everything. But anyways, that's the compensator in a NA2 level, what they call the old style level. The PDF on this I got online. This is just one that shows the compensator here. I just googled wild NA2. There's another page I printed out. Here's a model here that's got the degree circle, or it can read in gon. There's 400 gons per revs, or 100 gons is 90 degrees. Looks down and reads a wheel. And this is showing the test button that goes through and pushes on the compensator. Actually, Wild patented that. Here it is, patent number 3491455. That's the test button. And that's probably from the mid-60s, since it's about 3.5 million. Anyways, that's the compensator on there. The case on these are totally cool. You put the level in here like this, and then it's got these gizmos that go through here and grab Top goes on like this. Sometimes it's got to be adjusted here. That locks pretty well. I usually, when I put one of these in here, if this doesn't really have a lock, but if it does have a lock, I usually don't like to, I just kind of snug it a little bit. I don't like to lock it too much. I'll have it just sort of locked. I want it to move just a grunt, but not be rattling back and forth if it's getting shipped. Anyways, the way a compensator works, is this gizmo in here is back in the back on this particular instrument. It's in the light path, and when the light path goes through here, it ends up going through, it has a prism assembly that is hanging down always like this due to gravity. And so when this instrument is within maybe a quarter of a degree of being level, the pendulum is free to move back and forth, and it keeps the line of sight level. That's one reason you level up this bubble here. This bubble is such that when you have it centered on here, you should be able to rotate the instrument 180 like over here, and then the bubble should move. And if it does move, you go through and move it half the amount of distance on this particular bubble. And you should be able to rotate this instrument all the way around, of course slowly, and then this bubble will never move. If that's the case, that just means that the compensator is free to hang here by itself. Now, any auto level, if you bop it hard enough, you end up bending these tapes or having them pull out on a real low end level like most people use for just doing stuff that are $300 to $400, and when you hit it, typically it breaks the compensator and then you throw it away. Or you can get it fixed, but a compensator is usually at least $100. And a high-end instrument, this may be like $500. I don't think this compensator here is made anymore. These are made all different types, so this particular one only fits this instrument. This instrument's this is from 1974, and I don't think they make the compensators on there anymore. Now, if you're bored, you can go through there and try to adjust all this to make it work again, but without a fixture, it's very, very, very difficult to do. So a lot of times they just pull a compensator out like on a Berger or Sakia or a Leica or any other brand, David White, and you Topcon, you go ahead and put a new compensator in. This is equivalent to like the engine and transmission of a car. If this is bad, you're totally screwed up. So that's the way it goes. This is an older instrument here. It only focuses to about 2.2 meters. It's a 30 power, which is a good instrument. It's very high powered. It's a what they call an engineer's level.